Howdy, and welcome to the History of Texas. Episode 1, Before Texas, the Land and its First Peoples. Before it was Texas. Before it was a republic. Before it was even claimed by Spain. This land existed without a single identity. No borders, no unified government, no shared name. But that doesn't mean it was empty. Far from it. What we now call Texas was, and is, one of the most geographically diverse regions in North America. And that diversity shaped everything that followed. To the east, thick forests stretched across the land, green, humid, and rich with life. Rivers cut through the terrain, providing water, transportation, and fertile soil. To the west, the land changed dramatically. The forests gave way to open plains, wide, dry, and exposed. A place where survival depended on movement, awareness, and strength. Further south, the land met the Gulf of Mexico, a long coastline filled with bays, marshes, and shifting sands, a place of abundance, but also unpredictability. And running through all of it were rivers, lifelines, that would later become borders, trade routes, and battlegrounds. The land was not just a backdrop. It was a force. And it determined who could live there and how. This vast region supported everything from massive Ice Age mammals, mammoths, giant bison, and predators we can hardly imagine today, to dense forests and coastal marshes. For over 13,000 years, people adapted to its changes. Long before any Europeans set foot here, this land was home to many different groups of people. Not one culture, not one tribe, but a wide range of societies, each shaped by their environment. Imagine a camp at Lubbock Lake around 11,000 years ago. People are working stone, cutting meat, and tracking the animals that move through a wetter, cooler landscape, with mammoths, giant bison, camels, and saber-toothed cats roaming the plains and river valleys. Paleo-Indian hunters used Clovis and Folsom spear points, evidence we know from major sites like Lubbock Lake, documented by Texas archaeologists. As the climate warmed, people adapted again. Now, picture an earth oven in the brushlands. Smoke rising, hot rocks buried underground. Sotol and prickly pear, roasting beneath layers of earth. This wasn't just food preparation. It was a system for surviving in a changing land. By the late prehistoric period, regional diversity was striking. In eastern Texas, a Caddo village comes to life. Cornfields nearby, storage pits, temple mounds, and paths connecting one settlement to another. The Caddo were accomplished farmers who grew corn, beans, squash, pumpkins, and more, while also maintaining hunting and trade networks. Along the Gulf Coast, groups like the Karankawa lived nomadically. They moved with the seasons, fishing, hunting, gathering shellfish, and following the rhythms of the coast. They left behind massive shell middens that still mark their presence today. In central and southern Texas, Coahuiltecan and Tonkawa moved in small, mobile groups, relying on deer, wild plants, and seasonal resources in the brushlands. On the open plains and in the west, Mobile hunter-gatherers followed bison herds. Each group was finely tuned to its environment. There was no single way of life from one end of Texas to the other. Now, it is important to understand something early. This was not a peaceful, untouched paradise. Different groups competed for land, resources, and influence. Alliances formed and broke, territories shifted, conflicts took place. Archaeological evidence shows that different groups competed for resources, formed alliances, and often clashed long before Europeans arrived. Texas, even before it had a name, was already a contested space. And that matters. Because when Europeans arrived, they did not enter an empty land. They entered a world already shaped by power and conflict. Another mistake people often make is imagining this time as static, as if things stayed the same for centuries. But that was not the case. People moved, entire groups migrated across regions, trade routes connected distant areas. Ideas, goods, and influence spread far beyond local territories. Cultures evolved, pottery appeared, the bow and arrow spread, and new technologies and practices moved along rivers and trails. Change was constant. This was a dynamic world, and it was about to change even faster. Because beyond the horizon, something was coming. Across the ocean, European powers were expanding, exploring, pioneering, and conquering. They brought with them new technologies, new weapons, new diseases, and entirely different ideas about land and ownership. When they arrived, they wouldn't just observe this land. They would try to reshape it. And in doing so, they would set off a chain of events that would transform Texas forever. But that story begins next time. In episode 2, we'll explore the arrival of the Spanish and the first encounters that would begin a new chapter in the history of Texas.